Well, welcome back to the Degenerate Mentor. Today I have with me Mr. Kevin Kaufman. And I don't know how long I've known Kevin now. It feels like forever, but it's at least probably 8 or 9 years,
I think
somewhere
I
in there.
met you, I think it was 2015. Tony Robbins.
Tony Robbins. So, I think that was before we opened Summerlin. So we've been open 8. So, yeah, probably 9 years ago.
Yeah.
And he's a super cool dude. I love talking with him. And for this podcast, right, no agenda. Kevin has an innate way of just saying things sometimes that are just profound, and I don't know where they come from. But I have an idea of some questions I want to ask him. But every time we talk, it's just kind of like a free flow. So, yeah, welcome, Kevin.
Thanks, man. The good news is I don't really know where they come from either. I'm just as surprised to learn what I'm going to say as you are.
So we were just in Maui last week, and we did this hike. It was called 13 Crossings. We didn't make it all 13. So it crosses this river 13 times, and there's a waterfall at the end. My wife is not the most hiker type of person, but she loves waterfalls. So she's like, yeah, I'm down, right? And so we crossed the first time, and it's like you're stepping over rocks. No big deal. Second time, it's stepping over rocks, maybe drop a foot. Ankle deep water. Third crossing, it's like ankle deep water. Fourth crossing. So as we go up, they get worse. And I'm thinking it's just because we're getting higher. Well, it's raining. I mean, it's a rainforest. And she has really bad anxiety about tons of stuff. So she's not real cool about the fact that we're like, at one point, there was one really bad one where we're like waist deep, wading through the water and like kind of grabbing her to help her. And, it's rushing, the water's rushing down. And she's like, I'm going to get swept away. I'm like, you're good. We're fine. We get to like the 10th crossing. There's a family. And the guy's like, yeah, the next one's like blown out. Like, we're not going any farther. And so she looks at me. She's like, I ain't going any farther either. So cool, we can turn back, right? And so we turn back and we're following this family go through. And it's like, we're getting down. I'm like, I don't remember this one being this deep. So it's getting pretty sketch. Like, even I'm a little sketched. I mean, I'm not saying that, but I'm waist deep. I'm holding on to, planting my feet and then helping her. And we have another buddy with us as well. And all I kept thinking was something that you said. That's something we were at. And it was, babe, action cures anxiety. I said, Kevin said this, and it really stuck with me, especially for you because of your anxiety. And so, like, we have to just keep moving. If you stay in the middle of the river, 1, you're shutting down. 2, your anxiety level is going higher. 3, you have the ability to now be washed away. It's like, we have to just fucking keep moving. 1 foot in front of the other. We were doing side steps, side shuffle, just left foot over a little bit, right foot to left foot over a little bit, right foot to left foot. And so she started, and I probably said it, I don't know, 40 times for the next 6 crossings, that action cures anxiety, and just kept telling her. And then we got to the bottom, and the one that was walking across the rocks was literally over knee high deep. That's how much this river, stream, whatever it was, raised in the time that it took us to get 3/4 of the way up and back down. So that was one of those profound things that you said that stuck with me and actually helped. So,
nice.
Yeah,
it's true. It's not, I guess it's not just a saying. Like, it actually works.
Yeah, I mean, I guess when I think about it, it takes your mind off whatever it is that you're worried about or thinking about, and actually now you have to focus on something else. So
yeah, it's so I got that from my buddy Chris, and he actually says action alleviates anxiety. Same thing. Obviously, no different. And the way we were talking about it in business, we were talking about it with some agents this week is, let's say you have a list of people, say they're leads, or say they're people you want to recruit to your business, or they're, I don't know, there's something that you want to do, right? And they're on your, call it your list, they're a lead, whatever. So I see so many agents get like so in their head and build up anxiousness and anxiety around, well, Greg's probably going to say no. Like, he's probably going to say no. Like, I'm going to get rejected. Right. And it's like, you know what? I'd rather be rejected than not know. Like, the worst thing you can do is not just have them on your list. Like, that's the worst thing, is they could just have not given you any answer. A no is better than no, like, not giving the question to them, right? Not giving them the opportunity to work with you, not asking them to join your team or to join your company or to buy or sell real estate with you or to do a loan with you or whatever. Like, the worst place you can be is just anxious about that shit. Like, just make the offer, because a yes or a no is both better than just no, not being asked yet.
Yeah, you don't really. I was listening to Phil Jones talk one time, and he talked about the maybe. He's like, speaking communication and language, like we're in our language, we can help people make a decision, right? We're not manipulating them to say yes. We just want them to say yes or no.
Yep.
Maybe is the worst. And maybe, like, not knowing is basically a maybe. It's like, if you can say yes, great, we can make a sale. If they can say no, we can put them in a different bucket of, like, no, not right now. No, never. No, like, how do I market to them moving forward on the no or the yes?
You know, and really great salespeople know that. I was in a situation recently where I was kind of being recruited from somebody for a job, and the guy, I was kind of trying to nicely sides, like, there's no way, like, sorry, it's kind of, you know, but I wasn't saying it directly and very nicely, but he was like, now this, the reason I was in this conversation with this person, which was for a different thing, was because such an amazing salesperson and marketer. Like, he understands this at one of the highest levels of anybody in the real estate industry I've ever met or heard of. And what I really respected about him is that he forced me into a decision. He forced me into a yes or no. And I was like, that's no, it's not happening. And, you know, like, I actually had to say that because he wasn't accepting I was giving him these bullshit maybe answers because I was trying to move on in the conversation to the part of the conversation I wanted to be at. And I also, I didn't want to, like, completely crush him or, you know, just, and I don't want to, you know, make him feel like I was a dick or anything. But the reality was, I was like, damn, that he's a really good salesperson. Like, he forced me into a decision. And
yeah, like, we're not moving on until you say something.
Yeah, I love that about him. I love that he did that.
Yeah, there's a lot there. It's crazy. Talk to me a little bit about, I feel like a long time ago you had a certain perspective on how you worked, and then that kind of changed. And then now I think it's changed again, like, just by watching you and listening to you, as far as how much work you want to actually do and how much time you want to spend actually working, whatever that is for you, because, you know, you do things differently than maybe just a regular real estate agent. And so tell me how those seasons have gone for you and kind of where you're at now, and, you know, what work-life harmony, I don't like to say balance because I don't think there's ever a balance, but, like, what that means for you. Because I think a lot of people struggle with that and they think it should be a certain way. And I don't know if it should be. It's just whatever you pick. And so, like I said, I think by watching you over the years, it was one way and then it went to a different part of your life. And now I think it's changed again. So I could be completely off too, but.
Well, I mean, I think if you're not always changing, like, then are you really, like, are you learning anything? Are you becoming a better person? Are you becoming a better husband or dad or business person or friend or whatever? I don't know. I feel like if you're not learning and changing your mind on things, like, I think changing your mind is a superpower. Let me just put it that way. And I don't mean being wishy-washy. I just mean the ability to change your mind in light of new information.
Peter Attia is really good at talking about,
strong
hey,
convictions loosely held.
Yeah, because now there's different science, there's different studies, and, like, and admitting you were wrong. Like, hey, I thought this before, and now I think this.
My doctor, who has is similar to Peter Attia in the way he practices. One of the ways I knew he was for sure the guy. There was a lot of ways, but one of the things he said in one of our very first appointments was like, well, you know, I asked him a question. He said, you know, I used to believe X, but now I've learned about And so I believe why. And I was like, that's the best answer I've ever gotten from a doctor about any question ever.
Is that the poop guy?
What?
Is that the poop guy?
No,
That doctor?
that's my chiropractor. Dr.
Oh,
John's
okay.
amazing too. But Dr. John is certainly one of those people. Like he is definitely open and always learning and not just holding on to beliefs because he learned them in school 20 years ago. So yeah, Peter Attia, strong convictions, loosely held. That's an important thing for me personally. So how that relates to work is, I think like most people who start a business, I think the early days oftentimes require a lot more, right? Also, sometimes when we're younger and we don't have families, we have more to give. And certainly when my business partner, Fred, and I were starting our business, which we started working together February of 08, we had a lot more time. We needed to put in a lot more time to build something. There's a lot that goes into building a foundation of something. And we worked our asses off, in our business to build it. And we did that. And quite frankly, I did that for a number of years until 2012 when my daughter was born. And when she was born, I stopped working as much, meaning I didn't stop working hard. I didn't stop producing results. I just went home at 5:00 and I was there in the morning. I made it a I just made something else a higher priority, right? And one of the things that I was taught to believe, and I do believe, is that if you work from a sense of priority, then the most important things get done first, and you can go home at the end of the day. Like you can go home at 5:00. You can go home at 4:00. It's not that all your work is done. It's that the most important things are done and everything else can wait. And so just go home because the shit's going to be there tomorrow anyways. So just go home, go enjoy life. Right. And so I think that was probably my first real big shift in terms of maybe how much I worked or how I worked was having kids and in that season. And then that's not to say again I didn't work hard, but by then I was already not working weekends, but I was working Monday through Friday, putting in 8, 9, 10 hours a day type of deal. And then when my daughter was born, I was there in the morning when she woke up, and I was at the office Monday through Friday from 9 to 5, 9 to 4, something like that. And I did what I felt was the most important thing, and then I left and just did that every day. And then, things really didn't change much until 2019. I remember this specifically because I remember feeling like I was hitting, I had this plateau that I couldn't get through, and that just trying harder was no longer the answer. And I drastically changed the way I looked at a lot of things, and including the number of hours. I don't equate the number of hours I work to my worth at all. That's not to say I don't like to work or I don't get my work done. I mean, I was just having a conversation with someone the other day. I think if I was single and didn't have kids, I'd probably work a hell of a lot more because there's a lot about work I really like. But there's a lot about life I really like too. And there's a lot about life I really want to experience more of. And so I've just put more emphasis on what I really want in life, and things that aren't just work that are important to me. I've continued to do that, and I take a lot of time off. Like that's still a big deal. Like to me, I take a long time off. Like we were just joking before we started recording. Like I was gone in July. Like I took the month off. So I was in San Diego on vacation, and I was gone for 2 weeks the previous month because I was on vacation with my kids and my family. like enjoying life. And so, you know, I don't know about the word balance, like, you know, to your point, that means different things to different people. So I'm not sure, you know, I don't want to give it a definition for everyone else. But like, for me, the most valuable thing is not just the next dollar. I've never felt like dollars were the most important thing for me. Like time has always been more important. Even earlier on, like getting time back was always more important to me than making the next dollar. Like that's always been really clear to me. I want to make a lot of money. I want to make more money. It's just that I'm only willing to do it within a certain amount of time. And that's always been the number one priority to me. And I've always been really clear on that for myself. And so I think that's maybe what you see. You know, last year I took a lot of time off for health reasons because I've got an issue with my heart. And so I took the majority of 2023 off, like probably didn't work 75% of the year, maybe 80%. And then towards the end of the year, I just got really fucking bored. I just was kind of tired of being off. And so I noticed that as I started working more, I was actually feeling better also, mentally and physically. And so I just sort of leaned into that a little bit more. And so I've certainly, I think maybe that's the thing you've noticed is I've worked more hours this year. But like, again, I also took 2 weeks off in June and 4 weeks off in July and, you know, a week off in April, and I'll take a week off in September. Like I still have take a lot of time off, and I'm still not going to work on weekends. And, you know, I'll be done today at like 2:00 in the afternoon and just be done. So I'm not like I'm not grinding like I did in 08 and 09 and 2010 and 11 by any means. But sure, it's definitely ebbed and flowed over the years.
So back in those days, like doing a lot of short sales and things, producing that money, is it easier now that you have passive income? Do you think if you didn't have the passive income you have now, you would grind harder than you do now? I mean, does that make sense?
I don't know. I don't know. The money makes it easy. Like the residual income makes it easy. It's not passive, it's residual.
There you go. Sorry.
In my mind. I mean, I have some passive income. Don't get me wrong, but not enough to feel like I can live off of passive income.
I mean, I didn't think you really worked. I thought it was all passive for you. So it's sure.
It's residual. There's a difference. In my mind. And we could talk about that too if you want. The question is, I don't know. I don't know how much more I would work. Would I focus on different things during my working hours? Yes. Would I necessarily work, say, 40 or 50 or 60 hours a week? I don't know. I don't know. I'm more tied to the time than I am the money.
How do you catch yourself? Like, do you catch yourself and then doing things or not doing things and be like, hey, I really should look at what's important to me now? I mean, I think you always have a North Star of what's important, like what the priorities you were talking about, but obviously priorities change over time. So is there something that clicks in your brain and go like, oh, maybe I should revisit? Or is it just super apparent to you, like you just know?
I think I spend a lot of time thinking. So, I mean, I think about shit constantly. You know, I go for a ruck or a walk every single day. That gives me ample time to think about shit. I do that a lot. I have a coach. I mean, I have two coaches. I have a business coach, and then I have kind of more of I call her a mindset or psychological coach. And so, especially with her, she really forces me to think a lot. Like she asks me lots of questions, and sometimes like we'll be like yesterday, she asked me a question. It was like dead silence for like probably 3 minutes because I was just thinking through the question. And oftentimes when we spend time thinking on specific questions, I think that kind of helps sort of bring to the surface those things that you mentioned, like having a North Star, or what should I be focusing on? What should I not be focusing on? Not that I'm always Not that I always have the right answer. I'm thinking about it constantly though.
Yeah, it's a answer, right? It might
Yeah.
not be the right answer.
And sometimes I think it's the right answer until I realize it's not, and then I have a different answer. And I'm okay with that. Like I'm okay going, shit, I was wrong. I got to do this other thing. That doesn't bother me at all.
I've gotten much better at it. I used to not be okay with that at all. But as I've grown and learned, I think like emotional maturity helps. Like EQ definitely helps in studying, like getting my ego out of the way. And really, is this what's best for me and my wife and my business? And really thinking about those things instead of just because I thought it was supposed to be this way. And then having to abandon something that you put so much into can, for me, feel like failure at times. And it's like, well, no, it's not failure. We're just pivoting.
Yeah.
Because it's not serving anymore. But in the past, I would serve it until it was like completely dead. It was like detrimental.
And the thing is, I think about the nuance and decisions and things a lot. So as an example, say doing something new. I'm okay going, I'm just doing something new, like whatever. I'm not going to be like, oh, well, I've been in real estate for the last 18 years, 17 years, however many years, 17 years. And so I'm not going to start something new now. Like I don't have that thought, right? So I'd be willing to start something new. And simultaneously, I also go, hold on a second. I do believe in the power of compounding. I believe in the power of compounding in all things, not just money. And so I'm also aware that the compound equity I have built up in the real estate industry is super high, is a lot, right? That gives me an advantage over starting something new tomorrow, outside of real estate. Like I don't have the ego attached to going, I'm doing something new. I'm changing companies. I'm starting a different company, changing industries, whatever. I don't have the ego attachment around that. I'm just kind of like, well, if it's what I want to do, it's what I want to do. And simultaneously, I do also think like, hold on a second, there is a lot of power in having done something for 10, 15 years. I think a lot of people don't go deep enough on most things in life to really get to the good stuff.
And so when you go deep, is that just better questions?
I don't know. Sometimes.
More questions?
I mean, I ask a lot of questions. I think a lot of questions. So I don't know if it's more or better, but certainly one of those things. One of the things I think I believe is that I think that just being aware of things is super helpful, right? That's the beginning. Like you can't change something if you're not aware of it.
Mm-hmm.
If you're not aware of what's going on, or if you're not aware of your behavior on something, if you're not aware of when I do this, I get that, you can't really, it's hard to make a change. So awareness to me is like super important because then I know, and I'm like, I can make the decision to do something different or not.
Correct. And you're at choice. I'm either going to just keep doing the same shit and I have to be okay with that result, or I can make a change and hope for a different result.
Yep.
So I consider you probably, I mean, I don't know John Maxwell, but I feel like I do, right? For following him for 20 years, reading all his books and, going to see him live and doing all these things. I think he's probably the best connector I've ever seen, but I believe you're probably second. And so, yeah, I don't know. There's something about you that you're just super good at connecting with people, connecting people together. Like, hey, I think this would be good for you. Check this person out. Call this person. Come to this. Like whatever that is. Have you always been that way? Is it something that you've worked on? Both.
I think I've naturally always been that way, and yeah, I've always naturally done that. It's always seemed what's the word I'm looking for? Like obvious to me, or the right thing to do to connect somebody to somebody else, as an example. Or I'm a pretty curious person.
I was going to say, to me, it's like you're super curious because you ask enough questions to find out why somebody would need to be connected with somebody else.
That's the thing right there is because I'm also very curious, it allows me to understand people enough to actually know what could be of value to that person. So like when I'm talking, it's not hard. Like people get caught up on the term, like, how do you create value? Just bring value. I think people hate that. And I get it because it's used a lot. But if you're wondering how to create value, it's because you're thinking about yourself. Like if you don't know how to create value for another person, it's because you don't know that person well enough. I'll give you a real life example. If you cannot buy a gift for a friend or a family member without asking them what they want, you don't know them well enough. You are not curious enough about them. So my personal rule that I set on myself about, I don't know, 5 or 6 years ago is to buy people gifts without ever asking them what it is that they want.
That's so hard.
It's super hard. And I've probably broken my rule 3 or 4 times in that time frame, but I challenge myself first because I've just said, if you don't know that person well enough to pick a gift for them, you don't know them well enough. Don't buy them a gift.
That's an easy out.
It is though, but hey, it is unless it's not. Like
correct. But I mean, you're super.
Like you're going to show up to the birthday party without a gift just because you checked with yourself and you realize you don't actually know this kid well enough or this friend well enough to know what they might actually like.
And I think that's probably more than not.
Maybe
in a lot of situations.
Maybe for some people, it's not for me. Not to say that I'm not because I'm better or anything. It's just because I've thought about that and I've made that that's like a thing in life. Like I have a search set up. Don't tell him. I have a search set up and I get these notifications on eBay every time a certain type of thing comes for sale for Dustin. And it hasn't been the right one yet, so I haven't bought it. But I've had this search set up for like 2 years.
Well, I don't know.
Right?
I mean, I might not tell him, but you might just have.
I don't care. He just doesn't know what I'm talking about, though. So one of these days, the right one specific one of this thing will pop up, and I'll buy it.
And he's a horrible person to buy stuff for.
It's easy. It's as easy. So easy for me. And so
now my brain's churning because there's so many things that I'm thinking about when I think about you as well, and like putting that connection together to what you might buy him. It's like, I'm not saying anything because it's.
I'll tell you what.
At least not while we're recording.
I'll tell you one day off camera. I'm definitely not going to say what it is, because I haven't found it. So, but I'll find it eventually, and then I'll buy it.
I don't know why one thing just completely popped in my head out of. It's the weirdest thing too. So,
tell me offline. Don't tell me. Here's this.
So yeah, that curiosity. Dustin and I talk about a lot in my coaching, and I've read The Curious Mind. I don't know, too many times to still not be super curious.
What's it called?
The Curious Mind or A Curious Mind. He gave it to me probably 10 years ago. And I forget the author's name, but he's like a movie producer, TV show producer who's done a million different things. I can't remember his freaking name. But that's what it talks about, is just being how to have a curious. Yeah, that's his name, Brian Grazer. So if you look up Brian Grazer now, you'll see like all of the shows he's produced.
Okay.
Or directed or something. He's like, I was like, wow, it's a ton of stuff.
So this is a good book?
I mean, probably not for you because you're already curious. But for someone that struggles with that.
Well, maybe it'll help me become more curious.
And so like in sales, I think it's great because we don't ask enough questions as it is, right? We're trying to solve a problem that we really don't even know if the person has, just because it's in our lane of what we do. And so by asking better questions and getting better answers, right? Being more curious. And it's like, and I think of real estate in general. It's like, well, you set up a listing cart and you're sending them all these things and it's really nothing what they even want. Even if they told you they wanted it, right? Like we want a 3-bedroom, 2-bath RV garage with a pool. And we just go, okay, cool. Let me set you up. Well, why do you want a 3-bedroom, 2-bath with a pool? Why is the RV garage important to you?
Something I've always taught the agents on my team is why they're moving will always determine when they're moving. I don't give a shit what someone tells me their timeline is. Like, let's say I start going through my script. You call a sign, one of my for sale signs, and I start going through my script. And I'm going to ask you when. For sure, I'm going to ask you when. But I'm just going to put way more emphasis and weight into when you tell me why you're making the move. Oh, I'm doing it because traffic, you know, my kid's got to be in this school district, or, you know, I've got to be closer to an elder relative or something. Like, why always determines when. And so it's something I've taught our agents for years, is why determines when. I'm going to ask you your timeline. I'm just going to not believe you. I'm going to verify it with why you're doing it in the first place.
Yeah, someone had showed me like the word motivation. It's 2 words, motive, and then the ation, which is motive and action. When you put the 2 words together, so the motive is why, right, and the action is to move. It's like, why are you moving? Which is in real estate is like, that's the ultimate question. What's the motivation for moving? And you think about it and you're like, wow, and you break that word down. If you really knew that well, it's never going to be a no if you solve that problem.
Yeah.
So it's crazy to me. Trying to look at our time here because I want to be conscious of your time. 30 minutes. We're 30 minutes in. We've made it this far.
It's easy. It feels like 2 minutes in.
It did feel like 2 minutes. Okay, so I wanted to talk to you about being a connector. What advice would you give to people, even me? Like, I'm getting better. I ask better questions. Dustin always says, in order to be interesting, be interested. And so I've tried that. And I use this with people all the time as you know, it's kind of, I think it's funny. You know, when we met in Phoenix for a sit down, like I brought cards because I knew that you would take over. It's just who you are. Take over the conversation and dig into me. And I'm like, no, I wanted to dig into you. So I like literally had flashcards with questions on them. I'm like, okay, next question, Kevin. Well, and I asked you those questions because I wanted to be more interested. And it's just hard with you because you're good at that. So
you're really good at it, dude, because I was actually just going to bring up that lunch. You're good at it because you still, to this day, there's things that you say or repeat back to me, or it comes up that is something that came up at that lunch. And or I've seen you take action on things that we talked about at that lunch. So like, you're actually already pretty good at it, better than most people I come into contact with. I'd put it that way. And the fact that you're trying to be better at it is, you know, a good sign too. So am I. Like, I'm also trying to be better at it. Almost always.
Yeah, it's like one of those things that someone's always instilled in me. If you ask someone for advice, the best thing you can do ever is take it.
Yeah. Turns out.
Like, then if you ever need something and you want to ask them another question, they're like, well, hey, the guy, yeah, even if you didn't do it well, or you're like, I did it and I'm not doing that again. That was horse shit.
It's like,
at least you did it.
It's like one of the things Dustin said to me that I always remember is like, you know, I hate the person that like asks for a mile and takes it an inch, you know, and then whereas like the person who asks for an inch and takes it a mile, that's the person I want to keep talking to.
Yeah, we always say assholes, right? Like I don't
Yeah.
want to be with an asshole, and I don't want to be one either. I've gotten better at asking because I used to not ask at all. That's not good either. But if you ask and you get something, then run with it. Especially if you're asking somebody, like I believe, if I'm asking somebody, I obviously believe that they've done something I want to do. And I talk about that with the team a lot. Like, I don't know, out of the coaches that I have, my loan officer coach, you know, he was closing 100 million in a year. Here's a system, like lead to legacy. There's 52 emails from the start of the lead when the realtor refers you to the lead until you close the loan. Me and my loan partner put all those into signature blocks so she can just go, you know, signature, and it'll be that email. Pick it, and then that email goes out. It's like, why wouldn't you? Well, I need to make it my own. I'm like, okay, do you? You're closing 9 loans a year. You know, 6 million, 4 million. This guy's doing 100 million. His branch does 100 million a month. And we think we need to fix his stuff? No, just fucking do it.
Yeah.
And then when you get to that point, you can be like, well, now I'm doing, 10 million a month, which I thought I never do. I don't really like this terminology. Let me change it. Great, change it. But until then, it's like, I don't know. Plus, I just don't want to change it. I don't want to waste the time.
There's a guy that Fred, my business partner, knows that used to own a franchise company. And I remember one time we went to his office to pick something up or drop something off, and written on the wall was, the best way to follow a system is to follow the system. It's like, that's so good.
See, these are the one-liners that we get from you that are just gold.
But I mean, think about that. Like, just do it. Fix it later. Just do it.
What's the worst thing that can happen? You get the same result that you went to the person for to begin with?
Yeah.
Like, hey, you have what I want, or you've done what I want to do. How'd you do it? And you get the system. You're like, like, I don't really like making calls though.
Ben Kenny, he's a really good friend of mine. Like, he always likes to say complexity. You just create complexity to avoid doing the work, to avoid doing whatever we need to do, right?
Yeah, and we get to feel good about it too.
Yeah. Man, I'll never forget. I was on the phone with him one day talking about something, and he asked me a question about something, and I gave him the answer, and it was a complex answer and all that. And a couple minutes later, we hung up the phone. He sent me a fucking meme like that said, we create complexity to avoid whatever, to avoid doing what we know we need to do, or something along those lines. I forget exactly the way it was worded. I was so fucking mad at him. I was so mad at him in that moment. I was like, you're a jerk. But
yeah. Right. So why were you mad? Right. Because
right. Yeah. We just create complexity. Like, you can guarantee, like, if your answer is complex, you can almost guarantee that that's just you avoiding work.
I heard Nick McLean say this, and I think it was in Tahoe last year. He's like, the difference between complicated and complex, right? Like, it could be hard, but when you make it super, super complex, it's like, it's just the excuse. Like, oh, well, you need an engineering degree to figure out this CRM. It's like, well, do you, or could you just put the name and fucking phone number in and not use anything else that the CRM has to offer?
100%. It's just avoiding doing work.
Well, I think our time is up, which sucks. So, I mean, I feel like we could do this. We say this every time, but we could do this once a week almost. I appreciate you coming on. I don't know, but I don't believe like you. I don't look at you as a degenerate or an ex-degenerate. I mean, you are on the degenerate mentor, but
I think it depends on your definition and like what the levels and the qualifications are. I don't know.
Maybe. Yeah, I think everybody has degeneracy.
I did grow up in Yuma.
That's true.
There are certain things that.
I mean, I remember the high school is the Criminals, right?
Yeah, that's my high school mascot, the Criminals. Yeah, no, there's certain things I'm sure I could tell you that would have people go. Sure, I'm sure some people would be like, yeah, it's definitely a degenerate, and there's other people that like you were like, oh, that's cute. So probably somewhere in the middle.
Somewhere in the middle. So yeah, appreciate you being on. Love you, brother. I'm glad that we got to have a little talk, and hope all is well out there in wherever you are. I'm in Scottsdale or Phoenix.
I live in Scottsdale. I'm sitting in Tempe today at my office. So
nice.
Big area. Drive around.
Cool. Yeah, well, thanks, brother.
Yeah, thanks for having me on. It's super fun, and love doing it too. Appreciate you, and hopefully I'll see you soon sometime.
Sometime. I think so. I need to get up there, so.
You should. Yeah.
Cool.
All right, brother.
All right, thanks.
Take it easy.
Later.